There we go. Good, good. Welcome, everyone. I think you have to push it in. This is a City Council study session on February 25th, 6 p.m., and all of council is seated. Our first agenda item tonight is the police building update, and here to present to us is Public Works Director Maria DeAndrea and several others with her about the continuance of the public police building construction.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're going to provide a brief update for you on the project. We're at a very critical stage. We're within 3 weeks of actual moving staff from the existing building to the new building. So we'll go through that briefly, show a few photos, and then talk about some additional elements that need to be added to the project. With me tonight is Sam Watson, our Deputy Chief, and Laura Herblin, the Fire Marshal. So they can speak to some of the subject specifics if needed. So here's a photo of the front of the building. Again, it's really coming together here. So we are enclosed and going forward. Today we actually moved our dispatch group over to Arapahoe County temporarily. So there's so much equipment in the dispatch area that we need time. So obviously they still need to respond to calls. So we moved them to Arapahoe County where they're working temporarily for about a month. And then once we get everything in place in the new building, they'll come back at about the end of March or so and be housed out of the new building. So that's happened this morning actually as of 6:30 a.m. We anticipate our certificate of occupancy being received either this week or next. Our building division, as well as Laura, through the Fire Marshal's office, is working on that very closely with the contractor. And as of today, our plan is for 2 weeks from now is to have the last shift in the existing building at 9:30 p.m. on Monday, March 11th. And then we would begin operations in the new building as of the 6:30 a.m. shift on Tuesday, March 12th. And that evening, the IT staff will be very busy transferring over all the computers, making all the connections. So it'll pretty much be all hands on deck during those 48 hours to get everybody moved over. Because of course, it's not like a typical office building, if you will. We're still having to work in there and house people and process evidence and do all the things that they have to do. So very excited though. So that week of March 11th, we have a professional mover who will help us move a lot of the files, a lot of the physical elements over to the new building. And then we are planning on that Friday having a public sale of the furniture and fixtures that are within the existing building, rather than move somewhere or sell those through auction and having to move them multiple times. So we will be putting out some publications related to that. Then we'll start on the environmental remediation and demolition of the existing building, followed by, we're planning right now, as of Thursday, April 11th, is to do a public open house. So this was approved by the public, the funding for this, and we want to give them and our employees, everybody else, a chance to come in and actually see what the inside of the building looks like. So we're planning a ribbon cutting event and then associated with some public tours that day. Then once we're fully in the new building and we've remediated the old building, they'll tear that down and build the parking lot where the existing building sits. So I'll run through these photos very quickly. This is the atrium as you walk into the building. That two-story glass there. It's the front entryway. You can see good progress being made. This is the stairs going up. This is on the second floor. This is I believe this is the training room on the upstairs. Lockers. So you really see a lot of progress here. So all the finishes are getting in. Right now we're basically at the point where they're putting in a lot of the low voltage electronics, phones, that sort of thing. So we would like to talk to you. So any questions at that point before we move on about the existing building or the current building?
Looks like you can continue.
So we want to talk about 3 additional safety and security measures. Specifically, these were items, well, the first 2 that were planned originally, but because of the budget, we took them out, and now we're looking really, as we've talked internally with the staff, this is something that we do need to add, things that we need to add back in. So the first item is the ballistic glass film on the north side of the window, or in the north side of the building. Originally, we had planned for ballistic glass throughout the entire facility. That was value engineered out. We did keep it in the records area, which is on the first floor, sort of over by the main entrance. But just because of the proximity of these windows, this is where all the offices are. This is also, I believe, where the training room is up here. So all of these are offices or shared spaces. And with the proximity to the road and just the angle, if you could stand across the street, staff is recommending that we add film to these existing windows to prevent weapons or bullets from intruding. So that's at a cost of, jump ahead here, $185,000 to add that film to those windows. Then the second one, which is also a safety measure, originally we had planned, as you might recall, a 2-story parking structure to house vehicles as well as private employees' private vehicles, and that was scaled back to a surface parking lot. And the guaranteeing back some price from our contractor included sort of a chain link fence just around the perimeter to provide some level of security. And again, through discussions with staff, based not only on what we might use that parking lot for, but the visual intrusion, the potential for just safety concerns, we are recommending a wall instead of a fence. So something that can't be penetrated by bullets, limits that visual intrusion to see people's personal vehicles. And so there is an additional cost of $206,000 for that. And these are just some of the renderings that shows that in relation to the building. So we think this is a really nice addition. There's a lot of landscaping in the front there. And so it really fits in probably better as well from an aesthetic standpoint rather than a chain link fence. Just another angle there as you look at the front. And yet it provides that safety and security for employees as they come and go. And then finally, the Jefferson Fire Station. So the entire site with the existing building and the fire station was planned and constructed all at once. And so they were both buildings were served by the same water service, sanitary sewer service, and the same gas service. And municipal code requires that when you separate those or change those, they need separate services. So we are trying to provide that. And at the same time, fire code requires that buildings have a sprinkler system. So because Denver Fire does sleep in there, they do have sleeping quarters and have staff in there, we are recommending that this be done. So with the separate water service, right now, both and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but there's sprinkler system in a portion of the building that's served by the potable water system, water line. And so what we're saying is that we're going to provide a separate fire suppression line from the street that will serve a new sprinkler system within that building. We do feel that this is warranted. It is required by code, and we think it's a good time to do it because we're providing those separate services right now.
Councilmember Wink, I think, has a question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I'll go backward. So I think I have just 3 quick questions, possibly 2. So firstly, with regard to the fire code and allowance for potential fires, is there not a requirement to have additional fire for a first responder building type like this? It seems like the kind of establishment where the standard code might not be applicable and we may need something additional. And what's the standard here?
Yeah, I'll let Laura answer that.
The way the safety services buildings were currently set up, there was a sprinkler system in the police building now. The coverage wasn't extended all the way into the living quarters of the existing fire station, and alterations have happened in that building over time. It just didn't get extended. So thus taking away 80% of that existing building, we're taking away the fire system now. So that's why the recommendation is now that we make sure that we're going in and adding a current fire sprinkler system to that building, and that's the recommendation now. There are other things, updates that that building needs, obviously, but at this time we're just recommending at least the fire sprinkler system, and along with that would be the fire alarm system that monitors that sprinkler system, and those would be current to 2019 standards.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Your name is?
Laura Herblin.
Laura?
Yes.
So I just want to thank you, Laura. I just want to make sure we're not cutting any corners in terms of budgetary matters, in terms of securing that building for this kind of unforeseen incident, based on what's held in that building and the support to the city that comes from that building. It just seems like a place where we should name the maximum of what's necessary and what's needed to maintain our ability to support the whole city and to make yourselves whole. My second question was regard to the north side of the building and those windows, and you mentioning, Director DeAndre, that there would be a $200,000 plus cost to, I think, further secure the windows with bulletproof glassing. So I remember when we talked about this previously, that it seemed that would have been woven in. Is this new? Did we not know about this before? Because that side of the building seemed to be, from your previous research and what you presented to us, absolutely critical for the security of that building, based on the inhabitants of offices on that side of the building.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, so I think the intent was to have ballistic glass on the all windows on the building. And then it was from the schematic designs, kind of the 30% complete, to a later set it was removed because of cost. And so over the past several months, we've talked about it, and staff feels, while it might not be needed on all sides of the building, again, we kept it on the records area, but they really feel that this side absolutely needs it.
We kept it to that side, but in terms of that side, I mean, are we cutting costs to maintain protection? It's one side of that entire building. Are we doing what's absolutely needed, or are we skimping?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So on the east side, like was mentioned, it's protected by the public access. The access points would be through records, and those are protected. The records personnel behind the window, and even behind the wall below the windows, is protected with Kevlar behind the wall. On the south side, there's a large gap between the parking lot that will be installed during phase 2 and then the fire departments. We're not too worried about the south side. On the west side, you have the Sally Port and the jail. There are some windows on the west side, but there's the fitness room, so they're not high occupancy locations. On the north side, we have dispatch. We have a lot of offices. Dispatch from the minute we move in until that building is decommissioned, 40 years, however many years it's decommissioned, there'll be somebody in that room every second of every day for, pick a number, 40 years. And so that's very important, as well as the other staff offices that are stretched out along that north side. So we feel real comfortable if we just provide the ballistic protection on those north side windows.
That's my question. Understanding what the other sides of the building have in terms of protection, and based on the layout and what's really present interior-wise, I know about the north side, and I just wanted to make sure the council was getting a full report of what is absolutely needed to protect everyone inside that building, such that you can be comfortable and provide your services to the community. So that's 100% presented tonight? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we're comfortable. It's just doing those north side windows.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is just a summary page showing here. So those three items added together add just over $570,000 to the project. There is a project budget remaining, which would leave us still with a balance of just over $1 million if we add these elements into the project. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Questions, Council? Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I had the similar question as Councilmember Wink, so thank you, Councilmember Wink, for asking that. Now I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, well, if we approve these additions tonight, will that impact our opening date timeline or move-in dates at all?
Not at all.
Okay.
So the ballistic glass, we have been working on that, but that can come at a later date. And these changes to the parking lot will allow us to move forward with the current design. So they have been working on the design, not just renderings there. And we'll be able to move forward. That's phase 2. So we still have some time to finalize those drawings.
Okay. And we could also potentially, if the project is complete and we still have remaining funds, could add on the additional ballistic glass film in other places if we needed to.
If there was a desire, yeah. I think staff is comfortable, as Deputy Chief Watson just mentioned, with what we're going for right now. But
Right.
yeah, there would be $1 million remaining to do additional efforts.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor. And seeing the photos throughout the building and really the atrium as well, it's attractive. It's a really good looking building. It's nice to see it taking its final shape. Credit to the citizens again for funding this, and the police officers and our first responders for keeping us safe day in, day out. This is the first time that I have seen a public sale of furniture and fixtures during my time on council. Does that money just go into the general fund, whatever is made from such a sale, or where do those funds go?
Yes, typically, this is something a little bit different. It was actually proposed by our construction management group, just as a way to not have to move the furniture multiple times. So typically what we will do, like if we are done with furniture, we'll bring it to the service center, and then it's periodically brought to an auction site. And so usually it's public works staff moving it multiple times. So this is just something different. It still fits within our procurement policy as a means of publicly making those things available for sale. I will have to check with finance on where that money goes. I'm assuming the general fund, but I'll have to verify that.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilmember Barentine.
As Councilmember Quest has brought up, I do appreciate that the citizens voted for this. To Councilmember Wink's point, I mean, the $27 million that they voted on, and then the additional $5 million that we ended up getting from them, I think that we're more than should be more than funding every safety issue that we can possibly do. That was my understanding, that we would be able to do that within the $27 million, considering this project was around $12 million just a couple of years before this. So I think we've gone, the community has gone above and beyond trying to make sure that every effort is being made. They'll certainly be paying it back for a while, the 40 years, I hope not totally that long, but I'm not sure buildings last that long. But to Councilmember Wink's point, I think the original cost savings kind of end up confusing people. Why we end up putting things into the 27 million, we were trying to save off the 27 million, and now we're well beyond the 27 million. This will bring it to the 31 million. 31.6 million if we do all of this, and I agree. So actually what we're spending is the additional 5 million that was garnered doing it as a premium bond and raising the amount of debt that we went into. So this is the decision to spend that money, and that's okay if this is what is needed. And again, to Councilmember Wink's point, then everything that was taken out to save money on the 27 million, apparently, even though we took it out at the time, I'd like to get a listing of what was taken, why it was taken out before, and what was put in its place, just so I get a little better grip on what the decision making at the time was to take it out, and what were we taking it out for? What were we taking it out so that we could afford? Similar to the parking structure. I mean, when that was originally presented for the voters, that was in there. And so we took it out, but we took it out so that we could afford something else. It was a decision process. So if we could just be reminded of what the argument was so that we can make a better decision there. And then this is not additional money being spent. Well, it's additional money being spent, but in the grand scheme of what they voted on, what the voters are going to end up paying back for that bond is the $32.8 million. That's all part of that. This is not additional to anything that was part of the bond. It's not additional money to the bond.
No, this
Right,
is
the bond process. We can argue the additional $5 million
correct. Yeah.
on top of that, but it's all part of that bond and that vote. There's no additional money to that. There's some confusion on that. And for the only other thing that I was confused about that I know that had come up before was being able to protect our officers with body cams, and I was surprised to see that not in this list.
We've discussed that before, possibly with previous councils, and the decision was made at that time not to go with a body cam program. That program shifts and changes over the years. There's a lot of costs associated with it. There's operational issues. There's discussion of the necessity for those with individual departments. So, like I said, that discussion has been had.
Just like the discussion about the ballistic glass and about the parking lot and the safety issues for those things had been discussed and go back and forth. I think I would like to see that come forward again, because I have kind of started to research this, and I do believe that there might be a little additional safety and protection for our police if we invested in that. So maybe we can have that discussion again.
I would like just to clarify. We've never had that discussion as part of the building project or the usage of the bond or the premium money. That's the body cams have never been discussed there. They were discussed independent.
But it was always
from the
understood that
project.
the additional bond money could be used for anything that would certainly provide our police department with safety. So I like I said, I'd probably like to see some of that information come forward. We're quickly dwindling that additional $5 million down quickly, so I'd like to see that. Could I get a little bit more information on the fire suppression? I wasn't quite understanding. So when they take that building down, what are they doing to that building that's affecting that fire suppression? I just didn't wrap my head around that as well.
The main fire riser currently is in the police facility that's going away, that's going to be demoed. So it's taking away the riser, the main portion of the fire sprinkler system currently, which is an outdated system that was in the 1970s and 80s when it was installed. So the way the code writes now is any existing system needs to be altered or extended when you do construction like this. So there's a portion that's in the fire station now. So by code, if someone else was doing this project, we'd ask that they alter it or extend it into the remainder of the fire station. So we're just doing what the code would require any other business or property to do, is what we're doing.
And then, since I have you here, I would like one quick question. It has been brought up at council several times because of the flood, that we do have a emergency manager listed on the website, and it was my understanding that your position was designated as the emergency manager. Is that correct?
I share the responsibility.
Okay. So we currently have an emergency manager, and you share that responsibility with who?
Actually, the city does not have a current emergency manager. Commander Engler and I kind of divvy the duties as they come available.
Share that responsibility under the title of the emergency.
No, I'm the fire marshal, and I just help out when the city needs.
Did it? I know
Councilmember Barentine, I'm wondering, we have a limited amount of time. Let's make that a council request to sort of vet it out again, because we need to
Then
finish
the council
this.
request will be that I know that you played an integral part in that that incident. I would like to make sure that this council is given any report that you have submitted on what happened that day and how your department, acting as the emergency manager, played. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Interim City Manager.
Just wanted to respond to that by saying that we are going to have a study session on emergency management, and we'll address that issue, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks. But it is coming up, and we'll follow up as well.
Councilmember Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate that we were talking about this, that Member Brandstein brought this up. If there actually is such a surplus, if when we get a little bit farther along the line, I would be very, very, very interested in seeing, maybe this comes in the form of council request to understand the benefits and the negatives in terms of spending funding on this for a city like ours at this time in our city's existence. But
You're
Deputy
talking
Chief
about the body
Watson,
cams?
I would really, yeah, since I got on council, I've one-on-one just polled police officers. I'm curious about how much of a benefit it might provide our force. I do know that there's a tremendous amount of data collection to manage, and then storage of these, and then sort of the persistence of data and managing the longevity of data storage, which is a huge undertaking unless you've got some software experts that are doing it and you're automating the process. I understand. It's major. It's not just some simple thing, let's buy these, let's go forward with it. However, I would like to know, I don't know, I wish I knew, and I did a little bit of research on my own, but I would love to know, so maybe it's just a council request and I don't need to take up that much time tonight. I would like to know what it costs us and how much it serves us to maybe have that. Maybe the department's already vetted that and I just don't have the information, but I would really love it if it's a benefit to us, I would love that for our force, only if it's a benefit.
Thank you, Councilmember Wink. So that has not come before us. That's not something they're asking us about tonight, but we have two who are now interested. Is there anybody else? Are there anybody else who wants to see that? And then let's hurry through. Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like more
Okay.
information on body cams as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta.
You bet. More information would be great. And I also would like to hear how our current officers feel about it, if
Okay.
they think it would be helpful for their roles. Thank you.
I think you have enough to bring something forward at some point that